Welcome back with us for Getting Help from Anti-Alabama. We have with us today the Chief Elections Official or Officer for the state of Alabama, and that is Secretary John Merrill. And we're going to talk today about something that I think all of you are interested in. There are multiple ways to look at it, but I think that we need the facts. And we're going to talk today about this big push for mail-in voting. And Secretary Merrill, I would really like, you're the expert, so if we could sort of give a good picture of that, the pros and the cons, sure. I think our audience would appreciate that.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And one of the things that I think needs to be known is we already have mail-in voting in Alabama through the absentee process. It's safe, secure, has credibility, integrity, and transparency. That's the process that needs to be exercised. Now, for whatever reason, there are a number of states in the union that have lost their mind because we've had the COVID crisis, and they believe that everybody needs to have a ballot mailed to their home, and everybody needs to have that ballot mailed back in as their official vote. Now, I would just tell you that different things work different ways in different states, but I do not believe that that's the best course for the state of Alabama to take. We will not advocate for that. We will not permit that as long as I'm the Secretary of State. I'm excited about what we're doing in trying to promote absentee voting, but not direct mail-in voting. Now, I will also share this way. I think this is important for your listeners to know. The top 3 states in the union that use mail-in voting are Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. And each one of those states, prior to the 2018 election, had Republican secretaries of state who had initiated that process and made that process work for their state. But now, one of those individuals lost, and so 2 of the 3 are Republican, only 1 is Democrat. But I will say this to you. If you ask any one of those people, they will tell you that unless your state is already voting at a 60% return mail clip, which means that through the absentee process or some other mail effort that you have in your state, unless you're already returning 60% of your ballots by mail, you don't need to initiate that process because it takes about 5 years to get it done. And that's not 5 months,
wow,
which is between now and November. It's 5 years. Now, somebody out there may say, okay, you said 60%. Where's Alabama on that chart? Well, our standard return by mail number is 4%, 0.4.
Okay.
So we're 56% from being at the number that experts say you need to use in order to set your benchmark for mail-in voting. The other thing that you need to know is our neighbors. Kentucky, they're at 2%. Tennessee's at 2%. So let's be realistic about where we are and about what we're doing. The other thing that you need to look at, and I know you want to ask a couple more questions, but if we went to direct mail-in voting, it would cost the state of Alabama about $60 million. Whereas now, and that's for all 3 election cycles, for the primary,
right,
for the runoff, and for the general. It's about $18+ million for each cycle. But what you need to know about where we normally are is we have all 3 election cycles that are run with all aspects of the election for approximately $16 million.
That's incredible because that is a huge undertaking.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, my question is this. On the downside of the mail-in ballots, the most important thing to me is how do you validate that that vote is a valid vote?
Well, they try to do it different ways in different states. One of the ways they say that they do it is they take the absentee ballot, well, the mail-in ballot in their state, and they look at the signature that's on file with the voter in that state, and they compare it against the one that's on the envelope. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends don't have legible signatures.
True.
And so if you're trying to match that as a direct reason to count that vote for that citizen, first of all, that takes a lot of time. It takes manpower to
right,
do it, and it takes energy and effort to discern whether or not that's actually the person that signed it or if somebody's trying to imitate their signature. Other things are not as, in my opinion, solid on validating as that one, and yet that one, to me, is one of the least effective ways to do it when you're talking about millions of votes being cast, because we expect a record turnout on
Right.
November the 3rd.
Right. Well, if it goes into a machine that is an automatic counting process, do mail-in votes go into human hands? Is that all done?
Yes, ma'am, but what happens is they usually have drop boxes throughout the state
Okay.
where people can go by and they take their ballot and they drop it in. But the other thing that you'll find in a couple of these states, about 50% of the ballots that were turned in on election day at a polling site. So what sense does that make? If you're going to have a manned polling site and have people bring their mail-in ballots to turn them in on election day, you should just be voting in person, as most states do.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot, and you don't have to answer this, but it's a question in my mind. If I vote in person or I do strictly mail-in voting, which do you feel is the most secure?
Well, I think our absentee process is very secure
Okay.
because we require the excuse provision. We also require signatures or a notary to say that you are the person that completed your ballot, put it in that security
Okay.
envelope and mailed it in. But obviously, if you go and vote in person, you see a lot of different people, a lot of different people see you, you check in through those procedures, and then you cast your ballot for the candidate of your choice. But the mail-in effort that we see where every registered voter in the state of Alabama, for example, that would be 3,591,092 people
Wow.
receiving ballots at their home, and have those returned would be one of the least secure ways to do it. Because I can tell you this, in our state, if people knew that the ballots had been dropped at a certain time and they were going to be delivered by the mail to all of these routes, a city route, a rural route, wherever it happened to be, there would be a pickup riding down the road behind the mail truck taking those ballots out, and people would go and vote those ballots. And if you don't think that would happen, then let me show you the 6 convictions on voter fraud that we've had that have all been directly related to absentee since I've been the Secretary of State. I can assure you that would happen, and it's something that we will not allow to happen in the state of Alabama as long as I'm the Secretary.
Well, thank you for the reassurance. It is definitely needed. All of you voters, I want you to have much to think about here and when you make your choices. We'll be right back with you.